Welcome to What's Your Story. Our guest today is a fascinating woman that I've known for quite some time, and I've always really enjoyed being around her. She's very, very interesting. So it is Morgan St. James. And Morgan, thank you for being here today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I was so excited when we set this up.
Yes,
I really
well,
was.
we had such a good time the last time that we did a
Right.
show, but that's been years ago. It's been
Well, now
years
we've
ago.
got something to beat.
Yeah, we do. Morgan is the author of over 20 books and over 600 published articles. So that tells you that she must write every day. Is that true?
I'm an underachiever.
An underachiever, yeah. Well, you've led an absolutely fascinating life. And so tell us a little bit about you. You're a writer, you're an author. Do you write every day? These are new books. Tell us
Right.
about you.
Well, I actually don't write every day, but, well, I should say I don't write on books every day. I'm generally doing some kind of writing every day, but I'm a very fast writer. So when I get on a tear, it's not unusual for me to write several thousand words
Yeah.
at a clip.
Right.
And the thing that I've found, Judy, is that I never force myself to write, because some days you've got it and some days you don't, you know, and if you force it, it shows in the writing.
Oh, it does?
Isn't- yeah, I think so anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, when I will read things maybe the next day or a couple days later, and I can tell if I wasn't really in it. But the other interesting thing is that I tend to click into something that another writer called automatic writing. And when my subconscious takes over and I keep going and my characters are telling me what they're doing, sometimes I'll read it the next day and I don't even remember having written part of it because
know,
it was my subconscious going.
I have several author friends that tell me that.
Yeah.
Now, I write self-help books, so I haven't experienced that. I don't have characters that run away with me. but they say they do, that they never know what the character's going to say or what the character, and that's true, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I've had characters change the whole direction that I had in mind. In my book Betrayed, all of a sudden the main character's former father-in-law took me on a journey I never expected.
Wow.
And I read it the next day and I thought, where did this come from? But it's great, I'm happy. you know?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, but you asked me about me, okay? I
Yeah.
have done a ton of things in my life. I really have. And I started out as a secretary. My father died when I was 17, and it kind of derailed my plans to
Oh,
go to
yes.
college because I decided to go to work first and help my mom. And so I was a secretary. I was an administrative assistant. I was an office manager. I later studied interior design. I did homes for some celebrities. I segued into model homes, which I loved doing, and I was director of design for 2 different developers,
Wow.
responsible for the model homes and common areas, integrated concepts. I was in the travel business for a while as vice president of marketing. I also was in design liaison marketing, where I worked in the very early stages of cubicles, trying to convince people that they were better off in this little 5x5 cell than at in a good, desk area. And at that time, the designers weren't really savvy on a lot of the things, so some of the people really got into terrible, crampy little positions. I was a co-owner of a marketing and promotion company for 5 years.
But you've been a very, very successful writer, so do all of
Yeah.
these things that you've done, do they play in your books?
Oh,
Did they give you-
absolutely. Absolutely. My first book, or actually it became the second book, in my series Revenge is Fun, is called Rip Off. And it has to do with 3 savvy women uncovering a scheme to embezzle money from the prison department of the federal government. Now, I represented furniture made in prisons.
Oh, I see.
And so my co-author and I both did, and there were some nefarious things going on. We were with an independent contractor, and couldn't have written that book without having had that experience, because we knew exactly how the system worked and figured out how somebody could wiggle in there and embezzle millions of dollars. And one of the blurbs we had for the book was from a New York Times best-selling author who had been an undercover FBI for 20-some-odd years. And he said it was a good thing that we weren't crooks, because our scheme could have worked.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. But now you've written all kinds of different things.
Yeah. I mostly write funny mysteries or crime capers, comical crime capers as we call it. Have two different series, the Silver Sisters Mysteries and the Revenge is Fun series. But I have also written a book for writers called Writer's Tricks of the Trade. I've written, co-authored memoirs for true crime victims. Mm-hmm. And, everything broadens you. Everything is different. And I've written solo. I've written with co-authors. Every co-author I've written with is different, because it depends on how our synergy is.
So after writing these funny crime stories and these serious crime stories and all, what made you get into memoirs?
What made me get into what?
Memoirs, writing memoirs.
It was, actually today is kind of a strange day for that question. The first one was the late Dennis N. Griffin, who was a true crime author and a very good friend of mine, and had lots of former mob connections that he'd written books for and so forth. He had been approached to write a book for a woman who had an incredible background, and he was partway into it and realized he needed a woman's touch in it. And he called me, he asked me if I'd be interested in co-authoring, and I said, no, thanks for thinking of me, Denny, but I'm so up to my neck in projects, I don't think so. And he said, wait. He said, let me send you her bullet points and then tell me no. And when I read through these bullet points, I couldn't believe all the things this woman had done. And the thing that really grabbed me was that she was a white female leader in the Crips gang.
Wow.
And I thought, no, I got to know more about this woman. And looking at all the things that she'd done, I figured this woman's going to be 70 years old or more. And when I finally met her, she was gorgeous. She's like 5'10", long, gorgeous hair. She looked kind of like Angelina Jolie.
Oh, wow.
And she was
that
42
is gorgeous.
years old. Yeah, she'd been, before she was even legal age to drink, she was a powerful force in the after-hours club scene on Sunset Strip in Hollywood. Anyway, so Denny and I wrote that book together, and it involved a lot of true crime. Her father was the boss of a gang, or not a gang, but whatever city he went to, he had criminal and power connections, and he was her abuser. He broke her back, he did all kinds of things. She became like my surrogate daughter. Strangely enough, her birthday and my daughter's birthday are the same day, different years. Okay, so fast forward, Denny calls me again, and we had co-authored another book in between. And he said, I've got another one for you. He said this agent named Joanne D. Simone called me and wanted to know if I would be able to do a book for this couple that has an amazing story. And she was in the media in 1986. She was an abused child who hired a classmate to kill her father to protect her 8-year-old sister because he was going after her. And he said, is this something that would interest you? He said, I can't even co-author on this. He said, I'm working on so many things. I would be happy to consult, but I can't co-author. And I said, well, let me talk to them. Again, a totally amazing story, unbelievable. And not only was there all of this, but in 2012, her husband died of a massive heart attack, and she wouldn't let him go, and she kept begging for the doctors to keep working on him. And finally they said, hey, look, your husband is dead. And she said, no, he wouldn't leave me like that. You need to keep working on him. So the doctor finally said, well, we'll give you 10 minutes more, but then you have to accept what happened. And at 8 minutes, they had a pulse. And Rob is back at work as an oncology nurse.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it was amazing. And once again, this couple became my surrogate kids. All three of these, their parents are gone, you know, so they look to me like a mother figure. And once again, fate. Cheryl Cuccio, and my daughter were born in the same year, both in May. And I just felt I was meant to meet these two women.
And here it is May, and you're here talking about them.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, this is also the day that Cheryl and I found out that Joanne DeSimone, who got it all going, passed away.
Oh, no.
And so that was pretty sad. But without her, there wouldn't have been that book.
Yes.
And Incest, Murder, and a Miracle, it's been all over the talk shows, the crime shows, People magazine. It's been the most successful book that I worked with.
Well, you've done some pretty good books. Tell us about your new ones. This is your own memoir, right?
This is my own memoir, yes. And again, like I said, I've done so many things, been so many places like you. I haven't caught up with the amount of countries you've gone to, but close to it, I think.
Thanks.
But anyway, I decided I'd have to do this in a series of short stories. I decided not to do it like a typical memoir. And I wanted some humor, I wanted some drama, I wanted some trauma, and I think I accomplished that and came up with a series of stories that will appeal to all different types of people.
I can't wait
but
to read it.
But it's my life.
Yeah,
you know?
I can't wait to read it.
Yeah, and I have to give credit for this cover because a co-author friend of mine saw the original cover and got in touch with me, and she has designed award-winning covers. Her name is Carol Hamilton. And she said, you know what, I want to do your cover and I don't want to charge you. And
Is
so
that
she
Carolyn
did.
Hamilton?
Carolyn Hamilton, yeah.
Oh, she was just on my show recently.
Oh, was she?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, well, Carolyn did this
We brought
cover.
her in from Ecuador by Zoom.
Right, oh, and she also, like you, is a very talented artist.
Yes, she's a fabulous lady. Well,
Yeah.
that's a beautiful cover.
So, yeah, I think she did a wonderful job and put it all together for me.
Yeah, it's
so.
called A Life in Bits and Pieces,
Yeah,
right?
Right, and the reason I called it A Life in Bits and Pieces is because of all the little vignette stories in it.
I like it. You know, I've been thinking about writing my memoir, and I've actually scheduled time to do it this summer. And I hadn't thought about writing it that way, but that would make more sense for me because I don't want to go into 80 years of stuff.
Well, you know, that's the whole thing, and it doesn't have to be chronological when you do it that way, and it can have all different kinds of stories in it. Like, I've got one story in there where I was working in the lighting industry. I was national accounts representative for a major lighting company, and hospitality was a big thing that I did, restaurants, hotels, things like that. And I was after the Chili's account, and I was down in Plano, Texas, and did a tour of their warehouse and so forth. And they said they had a local manufacturer that they were very happy with. And I said, well, do you have a backup, you know, in case something happens and he can't do it, because I'm assuming he's a small company. And they said, no, we don't have a backup. And I said, well, you have these little piano lights in your bar area. I said, if you'd give me a sample to take back to my company, I could get you a quote and probably a prototype. And then if you ever have a problem, you can just call us and know we can do it. So he gave me a sample. I took it back, and our plant engineer said, oh yeah, we could do it, but I'm not willing to put a lot of money into doing molds for a prototype when we don't know if we have the account. A couple days passed, and I'm thinking of what a good account Chili's could be. And he said, well, he said, we could take off the UL label on it. I said, and we could send their own fixture back to them as a prototype. And that's what we did. And sent them the quote, and sure enough, in a couple of months, they called and said, our manufacturer has a problem. Could you do 100 fixtures for us? And we said, yeah, but you'll have to send back that prototype so we can match it, you know. And he said, well, you know, it looked really good, but the color was off a little bit, and it was their own fixture.
Oh, wow.
Fast forward, forecast lighting went broke. I was going to lose the account. I knew of another manufacturer that could make it. I called them. I said, would you let me represent just the Chili's account if I can get it for you? I don't want to be one of your reps. I just want to have that one fixture made. And they said, yeah, we went through the same dance. We're not going to make a prototype. We sent them the forecast fixture as a prototype. And that lasted for about a year until Chili's was taken over by a restaurant conglomerate.
Wow.
But, you know, I've done some audacious things to get what I want.
I guess so. So it's interesting that that's your life story, and we're going to find out all kinds of secrets about you, right?
Well, you can ask away.
But tell us about these two.
Okay, I am very thrilled because these two books have just these two books have just gone into audio production.
Ah.
And the narrators are fabulous. I listen to their
That's
samples,
wonderful.
and they're terrific.
So
And
the Waterfall book, is that called, what's the name of that book?
Watson Falls.
Watson Falls.
Yes,
Yeah, I
and
saw the waterfall on it. And I
Yeah,
thought,
Watson Falls is the first thriller that I've written. And it could be the launch for another series.
wonderful.
Because I like my character, and he's telling me, you see, characters talk.
Yeah.
He's telling me, yeah, why don't we do some more things? I've got a couple ideas, you know, we could go along with this. So the main character in this is Mac Peters, and he's a retired LAPD officer who left the force after he saw his father shot to death. And his father was the Beverly Hills police captain. He traveled Europe. He came back, but had a wonderful idea, and I'm not going to tell you what the idea was.
Okay, don't tell
but
us.
when people would ask him what he did for a living, he said, I go to my mailbox and I collect checks.
Oh, that sounds good.
Well, you know what? That was inspired by somebody I actually met back in the 80s. And I can't go into what the idea was.
Yeah,
But
okay.
that's exactly what he said. I took his line.
Well, I used to call my mailbox my treasure box.
Yeah.
Because it always had money in it when I was out on the road speaking.
Sure, sure. And you have an illustrious speaking.
So give me that one, and let's hear about this one.
And then this is the 5th book in the Silver Sisters Mystery series. And with the audio production of this book, Murder on the Menu, it means that all 5 of the Silver Sisters books will be in audio editions.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, yeah, I'm really happy about that.
You know, so many people really like having audiobooks. They can listen to them in their car, you know,
Right.
and a lot of older people really like to listen to them too, rather than having
Yeah,
to
well-
get out their glasses and
Well, I was
get the
just going to
book.
say, when the eyes start to go or the cataracts start to form, you know, it's pretty nice to be able to just listen to it, particularly if it's a good narrator.
Yes, yes.
And the narrator on this is named Kathleen Bond, and in her audition tape, she did all kinds of voices. Female, male, old, young, exactly what we needed for the book.
Oh, that's great.
So I'm
so she
really
could be
looking-
all the different characters. It's not like
Yes.
she's just reading the
No,
book.
no, both of these books. The narrators, the narrator on Watson Falls is Brad Holbrook, and both of them do all the voices, which really makes it interesting.
Oh, I would think so, yeah. Because sometimes I get audiobooks and the person just kind of reads it all the way through, and I think I could have read it better than that, you
Yeah,
know.
right.
But that's great that they actually do the various characters.
Right,
That's
right.
wonderful.
Not only that, but have the terrific voices along with it, the resonance, you know, and the clarity.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And I love the covers on these books as well.
Yeah, well, I have to be honest. I designed that one, and my sister, who's a graphic artist and my co-author on this series, she designs all the Silver Sisters
Oh,
covers.
wow, that's fabulous.
Yeah, the one thing we wanted for our Silver Sisters covers is that they always have to communicate that there's humor in the book.
Oh, that's good.
So-
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we love writing the
And
Silver
are they
Sisters.
based on you two sisters?
Well, yes and no. I think we've been down this road before, but my sister is 5.5 years younger than me. The Silver Sisters are identical twins on the outside, not on the inside.
I see.
And Goldie is an over-the-hill flower child, and so is my sister. And Godiva is a syndicated advice columnist who is a wealthy widow who lives on a Beverly Hills estate with her mother and uncle. Well, I'm not a wealthy widow. I did live 2 houses outside of Beverly Hills at one time.
But the series is then a series of escapades that these 2 women get into? Is that what it is?
Well, not only them, but their 80-year-old mother and uncle.
Oh.
And the mother and uncle are former vaudeville magicians who love to dress in disguise and go undercover, and they always get into hot water.
Oh, that's got to be
So
fun.
we have a lot of fun with them. But you know, this series is what brought my sister and I together as friends, because we didn't know each other that well. She moved to Alaska when she was 20. And so I lived in California, she lived in Alaska. My mom was the conduit. She'd tell us what each was doing, and maybe we talked to each other a couple times a year. My mom had mini strokes. Phyllis came down to California, and you know, we were both helping get my mom settled, and in the process, we got to know each other. And we discovered that even though we'd been so far apart geographically, we had so many of the same likes and dislikes, and the one thing was we both liked funny mysteries. And so a couple weeks went by after she went back to Alaska, and I well, we didn't have email then. I called her. And I said, what do you think about writing our own mystery series? We're both published writers, but neither one of us had written fiction.
Oh, really?
And so she said, yeah, I like that. And I kind of described it. And she said, well, that sounds like you and I, but I think we should make them identical twins. And so we did. And here's a funny little side note. My former partner in my interior design business was also an astrologist. And so Carol said, let me run their birth dates and see if it fits the characters that you've developed. Well, we have them born on different days, different months, different years, and different decades, before and after New Year's Eve, 1949, 1950. So Carol ran their astrological charts, and guess what? They were exactly the profiles that we'd picked for those 2 characters.
Oh, isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
That's really fascinating. I'm always fascinated with how people write stories. You know, having written self-help books forever, I can't even imagine how your mind works, that you just can come up with these fabulous stories. And
well, you know, it's completely different when I'm working on my own and when I'm working with a co-author. When I'm working on my own, I'll kind of plot out points that I want to happen, but I don't do strict outlines, I don't do things like that, but I do know where the story is going, I think, although I've changed endings like at the last minute. When I'm working with Phyllis, we'll try to have an in-person meeting. Of course, with COVID, that's been impossible.
Yeah.
She lives in Oregon, I live in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
But we'll plot out how we want the story to progress. We'll develop the personalities of the characters. You know, we do a lot of interaction, and we have the agreement, which we've had ever since the late 90s when we started this series. We have the agreement that whichever one feels very adamantly about something, if we have a disagreement, we go with the adamant one, and that's it. We have no conflicts, you know, because we've decided how to solve that.
That's wonderful that you decided that right up front.
Yeah, and then when I worked with Denny Griffin, we were both very similar writers, so we were working on the same synergy, and we didn't even have to do that because we were almost always on the same track.
That's amazing. Don't you find that sometimes when you work with someone like that, it's just like magic?
Oh, I looked forward to it. I was so sad when I learned Denny had passed away a couple years ago. And it was just, excuse me, very sudden. He didn't feel good, went into the hospital, and a couple of days later he was
Oh my
dead.
goodness. Oh yeah. That would be kind of a shock, wouldn't it?
It was. But life goes on.
Oh, it does. And we know that that's going to happen with a lot of the people that we love.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you know what I think is funny? When we first came up with this series, the Silver Sisters, and we made the Mother Flossie and the Uncle Sterling Silver. By the way,
Sterling.
One of the things in the Silver Sisters books is we use some goofy names. Agents hated it, the readers love it.
Yes.
And so when we created those two characters, we thought, well, we'll make them old enough to be wise and to be the mother and uncle of these 50-ish twins, but they're not going to be doddering old people. You know, they're going to be very aggressive old people. And so we made them 80 years old. And now I'm 82. And that doesn't seem that old anymore.
Yeah, you thought they were terribly old, and now you're there and you go, that's like me. I'm there and I'm going, it's not that old. I don't feel, like I thought people would feel at that age. Yeah.
I mean, I've got a son who's going to be 62 in July.
He's a senior citizen already, and he's your son. Yeah. Well, you've done tons and tons of book signings because you've been very, very, very successful as an author. How do you feel about that? Because we've been through COVID, and it's been where you didn't do in-person book signings, and now you're back to that. Is that uncomfortable, or how does that feel?
No, Judy, I felt so isolated over the last couple of years. And, I've spoken to other writer friends, and they've had the same kind of situation where without the outside stimulus, all of a sudden your ambition, your creativity, everything is suffering from it. And that was one of the reasons I started writing my memoir, because I knew what I was going to put in it, and I could do that. And now I'm part of a group called Coffee House Tours. I don't know if you've interviewed any of the people from
I think Joan Peck is in that group, isn't she?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Vicki M. Bush is the real mover shaker in that, and a couple of the other people. But they set up book signings at unusual places, and we're back in it, and I'm getting a full schedule again, and I'm double boosted, I'm cautious, so I figure I can do it now, and it's so energizing to be able to do that again. And I'm on the board of Writers of Southern Nevada. We're still having our activities online, but we're really looking forward to the time when we can get back together again.
Right. Well, I think we all are, because we felt so isolated. At first it seemed like it was just going to be like a month or a couple months and we could deal with it. And then it just got longer and longer and longer. And then a lot of people were depressed. A lot of people had a really difficult time during that because they didn't have that interaction or that outside.
I definitely felt that. Not in the beginning. In the beginning, I was okay. By the time we hit year 2, I was like, I'm so glad I have a dog.
I know.
And at one point, beginning of last year, I had 2 dogs, but my sweet Dylan crossed the Rainbow Bridge. And now I have Goofy Cucumber.
Cucumber?
Yeah, that was the name he had. He was a rescue dog from Texas.
Oh, and he came with the name Cucumber?
I kept it because he answered to it, and I thought, that's kind of cute,
Yeah, I never heard an animal named after a vegetable
They
before.
had all these rescue dogs with vegetable names.
I never heard that before. That could make an interesting character in the book.
Yeah, well, I call him Cukie.
Cukie, I like that.
And I said, if I do a podcast, I'll make him my assistant producer.
Yeah, I kind of like the name. I think it's really cute.
It is cute, and he's a cute dog. Right now I have his DNA sample submitted to Embark, so I can find out what kind of a dog he really is.
That would be nice to know.
Yeah, they said that he was a Koekerhund, which is a Dutch hunting dog.
Oh, maybe that's why his name Cucumber.
I thought, well, his ears aren't Koekerhunds, so that even if he has that, there's something else in him. But I have a feeling he's going to be turning out to be a Heinz 57.
Yeah, yeah. So what's next for you? Are you going to be
Oh.
writing another mystery? Or?
Yeah, well, when COVID hit, Phyllis and I were about halfway through the sixth Silver Sisters book, and a real fun one. It's called Hit Job in Hollywood, and it happens at the old folks' home, the home for Hollywood has-beens.
Oh.
And anyway, we're about halfway through. Phyllis segued into concentrating on her art. Neither one of us were feeling overly creative in writing. So we're going to get back on that probably in July. And we are about halfway through the first draft. And I'm seriously thinking about maybe another Mac Peters from Watson Falls. I have an idea kind of noodling around in my mind that I think would make a good one, and it gives me the opportunity to bring in another character from that book who's an investigative reporter. And so anyway, I'll probably do that. And then, you know, since I'm such an underachiever, I have been tossing around the idea of just doing a casual radio podcast. Just something about That's Life, you know, covering a whole bunch of different topics.
Well, that sounds great, but you're so gorgeous. You should come here and do a television podcast.
I would do that too. And thank you for saying I'm gorgeous. I'll pay you later.
Oh, no, you don't have to pay me. I think you are. You've always been extremely attractive. For some reason, I always thought you were going to be an actress.
Do you know, I could tell you a very funny thing I did where I was able to really make myself cry. It was when I had my interior design business with Carol, and we had this client who was a real pain in the ass. Can I say that?
You did. You already did.
And I made the mistake of giving her my home phone number, and she would call me like 6 o'clock in the morning on Sunday with a complaint about something that didn't even warrant being complained about, you know. And so finally, one Sunday morning, she called at 5:30 of something to do with, well, I'd like a little bit lighter thing on the cabinets in the kitchen, you know, and I thought, this is it. I've had it. And by the way, she was a columnist for a newspaper in the San Fernando Valley, and she wrote like Irma Bombeck.
Oh, wow.
So you would have thought that she'd be a fun person, but she was a terrible complainer. And so anyway, I thought, you know what? She wants me there at 9 o'clock. I'm not going to be there at 9 o'clock. I'm going to get there when I feel like getting there. And all the way over, I'm thinking, now what can I do? What can I say? Got to her house, and I go, you know, I'm very sorry that I wasn't able to get here when you wanted me, but I had to make a stop at my cardiologist because this stress has just been too much for me. And I was feeling palpitations and I got scared. And so, you know, I hope you'll forgive me for being so late. And I've got the tears coming down my eyes, thinking of something sad, you know. And I said, but, you know, I just couldn't risk it. I couldn't risk it. You know, I don't go around telling people about a heart condition. And so her husband zeroed in on that. And after we were done, he walked out to the car with me, and he said, listen, you're not going to have to deal with Jan anymore. I know she can be very difficult. He was an attorney. He said, here's my card. This is my personal number on the back. If there are any problems or if Jan is demanding something, you just call me directly. Well, I got into my car. I drove about a block. I pulled over to the side and I go, yes! And I thought, Carol is going to be so proud of me because she was an actress. She'd been in a lot of TV shows, you know, and it must have rubbed off on me.
You're so funny. Will you tell our audience where they can get your books and where to contact you in the event they would like you to come and do a book signing or a book reading?
Sure, absolutely. All of my books are available on Amazon and on all of the online bookstores. And they're available, the majority of them are available in Kindle, EPUB, paperback. Some are available in hard hardcover. 8 of my books will be available in audiobooks when these 2 are
Yes.
completed. And so, any of the online stores like Barnes & Noble, all of those, but Amazon has everything. Now, the one thing I've found is that if you put my name in, it's better to put quotes on both sides of it, because apparently there are a couple of Morgan St. James around.
Really?
Yeah, and also there's a resort that is the St. James Resort,
That's
and that
interesting.
always comes up. So, like on this book, you would say "Murder on the Menu" by Morgan St. James, and then it will come up right away.
Okay.
And my website is www.Morgan St. James, and that's STJAMES-author.com. And you'll find out a lot more about me on that website. You'll find links to my books. You'll find probably
Everything.
more than you ever wanted to know.
You'll just find everything. Well, this has been fun. Again, as usual, every time I see you, I end up having a lovely time and I learn more and more and more about you. So thank you so much
Well,
for being
thank
here.
you.
I know that my audience loved you. I love you. And thank you for being here. We really appreciate you, and we hope you'll come back next week.
Thank you. Well, you know what? I'd be open to doing some podcasts.
We'll talk about it.
Okay.